I froze halfway down the hallway, the old hardwood groaning beneath my feet. The words hung there, echoing through the house like a curse. For a second, I thought maybe I'd imagined it, that my father's voice, sharp and steady, couldn't possibly slice that deep. But then came the silence. Heavy. Confirming. Through the narrow crack of the living room door, I saw him, William Tate, still in his pressed shirt from church, coffee cup in hand, looking like the man who had always believed he was right. Across from him sat Paige, my older sister, head tilted slightly, a sympathetic half-smile curving her lips. She didn't correct him. She didn't defend me. And that silence was worse than the words. My mother stood by the window, arms folded, her reflection caught in the glass, calm, detached. The faintest smile ghosted across her face as if she'd heard a familiar tune. That was the moment something inside me cracked, not a clean break, but a deep fracture that had been forming for years. I backed away slowly, each breath trembling. The family portraits on the wall blurred as I passed, Paige's graduation photo in the center, mine tucked in the corner like an afterthought. I reached my childhood bedroom, the one with peeling wallpaper and a single lamp that buzzed when turned on. I closed the door softly behind me and leaned against it, the sound of my heartbeat loud enough to drown the world. They'd always chosen her, the daughter with the big smiles and polished charm, the one who mirrored everything they valued. I'd been the one who built quietly, worked silently, waited endlessly. I'd told myself that love didn't have to be loud to be real. That patience would earn recognition. That if I worked hard enough, they'd see me. But now there was no mistaking it. I wasn't invisible. I was unwanted. I sank to the edge of the bed, my hands shaking. The memories came fast, my 16th birthday, when Paige got a red convertible while I got a used backpack, the nights I stayed up coding, hoping they'd ask about my project, the call where I told them I'd started a business, and they'd change the subject to Paige's office decor. Each memory was a match dropped on dry ground. And all at once I burned. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. I wanted to call someone, anyone. But who would understand what it felt like to be erased by the people who raised you? My grandfather might have. Charles Ford, the only one who ever saw me. He used to tell me, "Your worth isn't in their eyes, Molly. It's in your hands." He'd left me something, a house, a symbol of faith in my future. And, suddenly, the thought flickered, what if even that had been taken from me? I opened my laptop, its faint glow filling the dark room. My reflection stared back at me, tired, tear-streaked, but alive with something new. Not sadness. Resolve. I started digging. Bank statements. Old emails. Tax forms. Anything that could tell me what my family had done behind the curtain of their smiles. And as the hours passed, a pattern emerged, transfers I didn't recognize, a company name I'd never heard of, my signature appearing where I'd never signed. A chill ran through me. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was written in ink. Outside, the first light of dawn spilled across Louisville, brushing the rooftops gold. I sat by the window, clutching my grandfather's old pocket watch, the one thing they hadn't touched. It ticked softly, steady as a heartbeat, reminding me of his words. Don't let anyone decide your worth. You fight for it. The girl who once begged for their approval was gone. In her place sat a woman with a plan. Today, I would stop being their silence. Today, I would uncover everything they'd buried. By the time the sun fully rose, I hadn't slept a minute. My desk was littered with coffee cups and half-open folders, the glow of my laptop casting long shadows across the room. Every document I opened seemed to whisper the same thing, something's wrong. I stared at the tax form again. Tate Innovations. A company I'd never heard of, yet my name sat neatly beside my father's, Molly Tate, co-owner. The date on the document was 3 years old. I tried to remember signing anything. I hadn't. My chest tightened. If my father could call me useless, why use my name at all? I needed help, someone who knew how to read the truth between the lines. So I grabbed my phone and texted the one person who'd always believed me, even when I didn't believe myself. Me, Holly, I think my parents used my name in something illegal. I need you. Holly, bring everything. My office. 1 hour. Holly Finch had been my best friend since college, sharp, fearless, a paralegal who saw lies like cracks in glass. I trusted her more than anyone alive. By the time I arrived at her office, the morning traffic hummed outside, but inside, the air felt still, waiting. Holly looked up from her desk, eyes narrowing when she saw the stack of papers in my arms. "Start from the top," she said. I told her everything, the words I'd overheard, the years of being overlooked, the tax document with my forged signature. She listened, jaw set, hands steepled under her chin. When I finished, she slid the papers closer, scanning them like a detective. "This isn't a mistake," she said finally. "Your name gives their company credibility. They used your identity to secure loans." My stomach dropped. "That's fraud." She nodded. "And if they touched your grandfather's estate, it's worse." The mention of Grandpa Charles sent a shiver through me. He'd been my one safe place, teaching me to save, to dream, to stand tall. Before he died, he'd promised, "The house will always be yours." But I'd never seen a key, never seen a deed. Just vague reassurances from my father, "It's handled." "What if they took it?" I whispered. Holly didn't hesitate. "Then we'll prove it." She turned her monitor toward me, pulling up the county property records. Line by line, we searched until her cursor stopped. There it was. Property owner, Tate Innovations. Transfer date, 2 years ago. Signature, Molly Tate. My breath caught. The signature looped neatly across the screen, my name, but not my hand. "I never signed that," I said, voice shaking. Holly leaned back slowly. "Then your father forged it." The room seemed to tilt, the weight of the truth pressing hard against my chest. My grandfather's gift stolen, turned into a pawn for their business. Holly reached across the desk, her grip firm. "This is bigger than betrayal, Molly. This is a crime. But we're going to expose it, every piece of it." And as the city pulsed beyond the glass, a new resolve settled in my bones. They'd buried the truth under forged ink. But I was done being silent. The office was silent except for the hum of the computer and the faint ticking of the clock above Holly's desk. But inside me, something thundered. My grandfather's house, the one he'd promised me, the one he'd built with his own hands, was gone. Not sold. Stolen. And the signature staring back at me was a ghost wearing my name. I pressed my palms to my face, fighting the rising heat behind my eyes. All those years I sent money home, thinking I was helping them. I'd been funding my own betrayal. Holly slid a folder across the desk. "We can build a case. The forged signature, the fraudulent transfer, the misuse of your identity, it's enough to bring this down." Her voice was steady, but I heard the weight in it. This wasn't just paperwork. It was war. I stared at the documents, my reflection glinting off the glossy surface, tired eyes, clenched jaw, a woman standing at the edge of something irreversible. If I filed this, there'd be no going back. No quiet dinners pretending everything was fine. No, maybe they didn't mean it. Once I stepped forward, I'd be burning the bridge to my family. "Are you sure?" Holly asked quietly. I thought of my father's voice, sharp as a blade. "She's useless. Not worth a penny." And my mother's silence, her knowing smile. They hadn't just doubted me. They'd erased me. My fingers tightened around the pen. "Yes," I said, the word trembling but fierce. "I'm done being their mistake." We began gathering everything. Property records. Bank statements. My wire transfers. Every document they'd used against me would now become my weapon. But as the pile grew, so did the ache in my chest. Each paper was proof, not just of fraud, but of every moment they'd chosen page over me, every time they'd smiled while taking what was mine. I wanted justice. But beneath it, a small voice whispered, "What if they never loved you at all?" I pushed the thought away. Love didn't forge signatures. When we finished, Holly clipped the final sheet into a binder, thick, heavy, undeniable. She looked at me. "You need to confront them before we file. Give them one chance to tell the truth." The thought twisted in my stomach. Seeing them again, the faces I'd once trusted, now painted with deception. But something inside me hardened. I wasn't the quiet daughter anymore. I stood, the binder in my hands like a shield. They wanted to call me worthless, I said softly. Let's show them what worthless can do. Outside, the city roared, cars, voices, life moving on. But for me, time had narrowed to a single path. The next time I walked into that house, I wouldn't be coming as a daughter. Sunday morning arrived dressed in silence. The kind that settles before a storm. I stood in front of the mirror, binder clutched in my hands, my reflection steady, but my pulse wild beneath my skin. The house I'd grown up in waited just a few miles away, the place that held every childhood dream, every quiet ache, every lie I'd swallowed whole. Holly had called earlier. You don't need to be angry, she said. You just need to be clear. But clarity hurt. It meant seeing them as they were, not as I wished they'd been. I drove in silence, the road stretching like a wound across the city. Louisville glimmered under the pale sky, the same skyline Grandpa used to point to and say, "You can build anything here if you know your worth." I wondered what he'd say now if he could see the house he'd left for me turned into collateral for someone else's ambition. The Tate house looked smaller than I remembered. The white paint had faded, the porch creaked beneath my feet. Still, it smelled the same, coffee, cinnamon, and the faint trace of regret. My father sat at the head of the table, reading the newspaper like it was any other morning. My mother hovered by the stove, her back turned. Paige was scrolling on her phone, a soft hum under her breath. I placed the binder on the table. The sound echoed. "Can we talk?" I asked. My father glanced up, a hint of annoyance in his eyes. "Make it quick, Molly. We're having breakfast." I met his gaze. "This won't take long." I opened the binder, sliding the first page forward, Charles Ford's will. "He left me the house," I said quietly. "In writing." My mother stiffened. My father's eyes flicked to the paper, unreadable. Then I laid down the next sheet, the deed transfer, forged with my name. "I never signed this," I said, voice shaking. "But you did. You took what wasn't yours." The room went still. Even Paige looked up, confusion in her eyes. My father's expression hardened. "You don't understand how business works. We did what was necessary." "For who?" I snapped. "You? Paige? You used my name. You stole my inheritance. You called me worthless while building your company on my back." My mother whispered, "We thought you'd understand one day." "Understand what?" I asked. "That love comes with signatures I never gave? That family means silence while you erase me." Paige shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. "Dad, is this true?" He didn't answer. The weight of every year pressed down on me, the quiet dismissals, the favoritism, the lies. I gathered the pages, my voice steady now. "You had a choice. You could have told the truth. Instead, you forged it." I stood, clutching the binder to my chest. "This is your last chance to do the right thing." My father leaned back, arms crossed. "You wouldn't dare." A bitter smile touched my lips. "Watch me." And as I turned to leave, the silence behind me cracked not from guilt, but from fear. The reckoning was no longer a possibility. The dining room felt colder now, sunlight spilling through the lace curtains, cutting across the table like a spotlight. My father sat stiff, jaw set. My mother's hands trembled over her coffee cup. Paige looked small, as if the walls she'd trusted her whole life were beginning to shift. I stood at the head of the table, binder open before me, each page a blade. The evidence lay between us, black ink and betrayal. "You forged my name," I said, voice low but unflinching. "You took the house Grandpa left me. You used me to build your company, and then called me worthless." My father slammed his palm on the table. "We're your family. Everything we did was to keep this business alive. You don't know what it takes to build something real." I leaned forward, meeting his glare. "No, Dad. You don't know what it takes to build something honest." I slid the deed toward him, my forged signature staring up like a wound. "This isn't sacrifice. It's theft. And it ends now." Paige reached for the page, her eyes scanning the lines. When she saw the signature, her face strained. "You really signed her name?" she whispered. Her voice cracked like glass. My mother spoke, her tone pleading. "We thought we'd pay it back when things got better." I laughed softly, the sound bitter. "You didn't just take my house. You took my trust. You turned Grandpa's promise into a loan." Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Then I pulled out the final sheet, the bank transfers. 7 years, I said. $40,000 I sent home. Money I thought was helping you, while you built your company on my inheritance. My father's face twisted with frustration. You wouldn't have what you have without us. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing but a lesson, I said. That love without respect is just control. The words landed like thunder. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Please, Molly, don't do this. We're family. I shook my head slowly. Family doesn't forge your name. Family doesn't erase your worth. Paige stood, voice trembling. Dad. Mom, she's right. My father's chair scraped back sharply. Enough. This is between your mother and me. I closed the binder with a decisive snap. No, it's not. This is between me and the truth. I held it to my chest, my heartbeat steady now. I've already filed the lawsuit. The room froze. My father blinked, disbelief flickering into fear. You what? I gave the evidence to a lawyer. Tate Innovations will answer for every lie, every forged document. You wanted me to be silent, but I'm done being quiet. For the first time, he had no words. I stepped back, gaze sweeping over them, my father's pride, my mother's guilt, my sister's shock. You built your empire on my name. Now watch what happens when I take it back. And as I turned toward the door, I felt the weight lift, not because they'd understood, but because I no longer needed them to. The house behind me stayed silent. But for the first time, I didn't. It took months for the dust to settle, months of court filings, phone calls, and quiet nights staring at ceilings that finally belonged to me. The lawsuit didn't just strip Tate Innovations of its stolen assets. It stripped the illusion from my family, the fragile myth that love could survive deceit. When the judgment came, the house was legally restored to my name. The company collapsed under its own lies, and with it, the last tether holding me to their world. I didn't go to the hearing. I didn't need to watch their empire unravel. Some endings don't need witnesses, only distance. Instead, I stood outside the small 2-bedroom house in the Highlands. The air smelled like rain and old wood. My grandfather's words echoed in the wind. Your worth is yours to guard, Molly. No one can steal it unless you let them. I stepped across the threshold, each creak of the floorboards like a heartbeat returning. Dust drifted through slanted light, catching on the corners of framed memories still nailed to the walls. I left them there, not as forgiveness, but as proof of what I'd survived. I renovated slowly, not to erase the past, but to reclaim it. The living room became a co-working space for young women starting small businesses, women who, like me, had been told they weren't enough. We met every week, laptops open, dreams louder than doubt. I called it the Ford House, after Grandpa, a place where worth wasn't questioned, only built. Sometimes, when the room hummed with quiet determination, I'd look around and realize I'd become the person I once needed, steady, unafraid enough. My father never called again. My mother sent a letter I never opened. Paige reached out once, a text that said, I'm sorry. I didn't respond, not out of anger, but peace. Some bridges aren't meant to be crossed again. I built a new life brick by brick, a thriving startup, a community of women, a home filled with light. And in the corner of my desk sat a small silver frame, my grandfather, smiling, eyes bright with the faith he'd always carried for me. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection beside his, and I'd whisper, you were right. The hurt hadn't vanished, scars don't fade so easily, but it had transformed. It became strength, clarity, a quiet kind of freedom. On the first anniversary of the verdict, I stood on the porch as the sun dipped below the Louisville skyline, gold and soft. The city hummed with life, and for the first time, so did I. I thought of all the times I'd been told I was nothing. And I smiled because nothing had become everything.